A billionaire handed 4 women unlimited black credit cards. But what the maid did with hers, it left him speechless and changed everything. What if power and money weren't just temptations, but mirrors? What if one silent woman, hidden in the background of a mansion, held more heart than all the high society combined? Today's story is not just about luxury or betrayal. It's about the quiet kind of love that doesn't ask to be seen, and how it rose above lies, greed, and status. In this emotional roller coaster, you'll witness a secret social experiment gone wrong, a test of loyalty, integrity, and hidden intentions, and how one act of pure kindness outshined billions. Don't blink, because the twist near the end will challenge what you believe about people, love, and what truly matters. Think you're good at judging character? This story will make you think twice. He tossed his blazer onto the couch with a flinch of rage that echoed through the sleek, marble-lined penthouse. Oliver Grant's voice trembled, not with weakness, but with a desperate ache. "I'm not a charity case. I'm not a trophy. I'm a person," he muttered, and the words wound tight around his throat. Across the open-plan kitchen, James, his loyal assistant of 8 years, stood motionless, composure itself. James had seen Oliver at his best and his worst, but never like this. The strain in Oliver's shoulders, the raw edge in his eyes. Something had finally broken. "It was a nightmare," Oliver said quietly. "She posted a photo with dessert, tagged me as her favorite ex, and toasted to getting back together with a glass of the finest sparkling wine, no less. As if my feelings were a stock to be traded, rising and falling on showy posts." His chest tightened, frustration written in every taut line of his face. James nodded, steady. "Sir, that was just dinner." "Dinner?" Oliver almost laughed, a harsh sound. "She said she missed me and the helicopter in the same sentence. Suddenly, I'm not the man she loves. I'm the ride she misses, or the bank account she checks in on." James watched him closely. "Maybe what you need is a break. Time away, fresh air, a trip?" But Oliver didn't hear him. He was living in a loop of filtered flattery and empty lies. He stared out the wide windows at Seattle's skyline, lights shimmering like distant promises. His heart, however, felt numb. And in that absence, something fierce took root. A reckless, brilliant idea. Something that would expose truth, capital T, in a way no conversation or confrontation ever could. He turned abruptly, voice clipped with purpose. "I've had it. With the fake smiles. With people who only love my yacht, my penthouse, my image. I'm done pretending. I want to observe what's real. I'm going to test them." James raised one eyebrow in his silent way. "Test them? Sir, that never means anything good. I won't judge. I'll simply let them choose and reveal themselves." There, the plan stood. Sharp, uncompromising. Oliver leaned forward, voice lowered. "I'm giving an unlimited credit card to 4 women in my life. No instructions, no limits, total freedom. And then I'll watch. I'll see who they really are." The words hung in the air, as startling as the drop of a guillotine. It wasn't vindictive, it was surgical. It wasn't cruelty, it was revelation. James cleared his throat. "Manipulative?" "Not manipulation," Oliver said calmly, almost chillingly. "Observation. Behavior under pressure is the most honest mirror." James hesitated, eyes flicking between Oliver's gaze and the city skyline. "And the 4, who are they?" Oliver's dark eyes glowed. "Daisy, of course, Daisy Patterson, living life like a spotlight. Susanna, my assistant, wraps her ambition around her like armor. Valeria, elegant and calculating, always flirting with charm and possibility. And Grace James allowed the name to hang. Grace? The housekeeper, yes. The woman who hums while vacuuming. The one who calls me Mr. Grant, like she's bored with formality. She's never asked for a raise, never auditioned for attention. That's exactly why she's in James's face, tightened, not incredulous, but concerned. That could go very wrong. I'm already issuing the cards, Oliver said, softer but determined. I want to see what happens when power lands in their hands. That night, the penthouse was unusually quiet, a silence full of foreboding. James prepared everything. 4 black envelopes, names written in silver ink. By morning, the envelopes were arranged on the coffee table, each a promise, each a challenge. First came Susanna. She glided in, office perfect in heels and blazer, eyes curious. She opened the envelope slowly, looked at the card, and her breath hitched in anticipation. Unlimited for 3 days. Have fun, Oliver told her lightly. Her smile was polite but hungry. Valeria was next poised, measuring. She eyed the envelope with suspicion and delight in equal measure. "What is this?" she asked, voice smooth as silk. "Just a gift," he said, offering nothing more. She accepted it with a feline smile that whispered of possibilities. Then Daisy appeared, dramatic as always, stepping from the elevator like she owned it. No subtlety. This was performance. "Oh, Ollie, is this for me?" she asked, turning the envelope over like holding a prop. "Yours for 3 days, spend as you wish," Oliver replied, casually dismissive, already turning toward the kitchen. And in walked Grace. Baking towel draped over one shoulder, raw dough still clinging to her hands. She blinked at the envelope. "What is it?" she asked, cautious. "I thought you might like this," Oliver said. The black card gleamed inside. No fanfare for her. But in that moment, the card felt heavier in Grace's hand than it did for the others. Hours later, James came upstairs, palette of transaction alerts glowing on his tablet. Helicopters, $15,000 dresses, gala prep. No surprises. But then, the housekeeper's card. Rice, diapers, poster paints, hot dogs, a clown costume, balloons. Spent at grocery stores, craft shops, charity providers. Hot dogs? Balloons? A clown suit? Oliver leaned forward. His curiosity was now fully alight. Grace wasn't just showing character. She was showing something deeper. And Oliver realized, in that quiet observation, he was watching more than spending habits. He was watching the turning point of his own heart. Oliver watched each woman approach the envelope with a restless energy in the air. The 4 black cards, sleek, unmarked, and utterly unrestricted, lay on his coffee table like keys to hidden selves. He felt his pulse quicken. First to arrive was Susanna, always immaculate, always precise. Her heels clicked across the polished floor. She accepted the envelope with a curious poise. Her eyes flickered to Oliver, as if analyzing, is this a reward? A test? "Mr. Grant," she said, voice steady. "A gift?" Her calm was professional, but he caught something beneath it, anticipation. He offered a faint smile. 3 days, no rules. It's yours?" Susanna's lips parted in a barely concealed grin. She tucked the card into her designer bag, her expression cool, confident. She left, head held high, already strategizing, as only she could. Then came Valeria. She glided in, elegance personified, high cheekbones, and a voice smooth as silk. She eyed the envelope, suspiciously delighted. "What is this?" she asked, each word measured. Oliver answered simply, "Just a gift. No strings. Use it how you wish." She smiled, a soft, knowing arc of her lips. She took the card, fingertips lingering as though revealing possibilities. A quiet promise. Daisy arrived next, stepping from the elevator like a starlet entering her set. Lights flashed in her mind, even if the penthouse lights were soft. She snatched the envelope and held up the card like it was a trophy. "Oh, Ollie," she cooed, adjective loaded. "For me?" Oliver only said, "It's yours. 3 days. Unlimited." Her smile bloomed wide, theatrical. She flicked her hair back, ready for the show. Then finally, Grace. The hush of the kitchen accompanied her entrance. She brushed dough off her apron, hands flour-dusted, eyes gentle, unassuming. She paused at the threshold, noticing the envelope. Carefully, slowly, she removed it. She looked at the card, its dark sheen gleaming back. "Mr. Grant?" Her voice was quiet, cautious. "It's for you," he said softly. 3 days. Spend as you wish." Grace's gaze flickered up, searching his. A moment passed. She swallowed. Nothing dramatic, nothing staged. She tucked the card into her pocket, as though accepting the most weighty thing she'd ever held. She nodded and left. No fanfare, no performance. As the day unfolded, Oliver settled into his office, restless, straining to interpret their behavior. He wanted fireworks, confessions, scandal, even betrayal. But what he craved most was honesty, just pure truth. James hovered. "Sir," he said, voice low, "they've all begun spending." Oliver exhaled. "I know." Check the alerts. James swiped through notifications. 3 helicopter trips booked. A $15,000 couture gown. A private gala being planned, with invitations already crafted. Daisy rented the chopper to arrive in dramatic fashion. Susanna spent thousands on a wardrobe that would flatter any boardroom or runway. Valeria commissioned an event planner for a flash gala, even none had asked for yet. Oliver shook his head with a worn-out sigh. "Predictable," he muttered. "Just like I thought." Then James hesitated, fingers hovering. "Grace's card, sir, the transactions are different." Oliver leaned forward. "Rice. Plain, simple. Bags of rice, toys, diapers, poster paint, balloons, a clown costume, hot dogs, 200 of them, apparently." "What?" Oliver whispered. "Hot dogs?" Grace was spending on kids, colors, basic essentials, no selfies, no shimmering lights, no hashtag bragging. James looked up. "She's organizing a charity event." Oliver smiled crookedly, breath catching. "A charity event?" "She's rented a van. Supplies, crafts, food. It's for children somewhere. She's not spending for attention. She's spending to make things better." Oliver's heart thudded in his chest. He watched the penthouse windows shrink into the skyline as dusk fell. The city lights came on. He stared, transfixed. The contrast haunted him. 3 women had used power to elevate themselves, social capital, material gain, impression management. Grace, meanwhile, had used power to serve, transform the unlimited into something deeply human. "Do you ever imagine what she's thinking when she buys those things?" Oliver asked James, voice thick. James shook his head. "I've never seen anyone act quieter under that kind of freedom." Oliver swallowed. He felt a strange ache, a shift he didn't fully understand yet. Curiosity had bloomed into something deeper, something raw. "Let's see where that leads," he murmured. That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. He replayed the contrast. Daisy's extravagance, Susanna's ambition, Valeria's calculated elegance, Grace's silent generosity. The card meant freedom. How each woman used it revealed not just how they spent money, but who they were when money didn't stop them. He realized the experiment had already started, and Grace had already changed the rules of his reality. The morning sun filtered through the penthouse windows, casting warm gold across the sleek marble floor. Oliver sat at his dining table, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. The cup had long since gone cold. Across the room, James stood near the glass wall, scanning his tablet with sharp focus. "Sir," he finally said, breaking the silence. "More card activity just came in." Oliver looked up, intrigued but oddly apprehensive. "Tell me." James tapped a few times, pulling up the latest transactions. Daisy rented a helicopter again, this time to make a grand entrance at the Skyline Club. According to her social media, it was part of an empowerment brunch with influencers. Oliver raised an eyebrow. And how many of those influencers needed to be helicoptered in? "None," James said, deadpan. "But the video of her stepping out in heels and couture is already trending. 15,000 likes, and counting." Oliver let out a breath. "Predictable," James continued. "Susanna visited Bergdorf Goodman. She bought a new wardrobe, $5,000 on shoes alone. The captions on her photos talk about investing in your personal brand." "Let me guess," Oliver said, rubbing his forehead. "Boss energy, #next level." "Exactly that." Oliver chuckled without humor. "And Valeria?" he asked, although he already knew. James scrolled. "She's hosting a gala next weekend. Hired a full event team. The theme is contemporary elegance. She's already sent out half the invites to Seattle's elite." Oliver stood, walked toward the window, and stared out at the city. "It's like they're all reading from the same playbook," he muttered. "Status, spectacle." James cleared his throat. "There's one more update." Oliver turned slightly, waiting. "Grace." He leaned in. "What now?" James smiled, almost softly. "Another 200 balloons, 30 pounds of sugar, more poster paint, craft supplies, and she rented a van again. This one's scheduled to pick up food donations from a local market. She's listed the destination as St. Francis Home." Oliver frowned. "That's an orphanage, right?" "Yes, sir." "A shelter and support center for children." Oliver blinked, letting the words settle. "So while everyone else is throwing parties for themselves, she's throwing a party for children?" James nodded. "It seems that way." "And sir, she bought a clown costume. Red nose included." "Oh," Oliver stared at him, stunned, silent for a moment. Then a laugh escaped, genuine, unexpected, warm. "Grace is dressing up as a clown?" he repeated, like it was the most bizarre miracle he'd ever heard. "I believe so." Oliver walked back to the table, dropped into his chair, and ran a hand through his hair. "You know," he said slowly, "of all the outcomes I imagined when I handed out those cards, Grace in a clown costume was definitely not on the list." James smirked. "She's unpredictable." "No," Oliver corrected. "She's sincere. That's what's so rare." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Daisy buys influence. Susanna buys perception. Valeria buys attention. Grace buys hot dogs." For children, Oliver closed his eyes, trying to make sense of the growing ache in his chest. It wasn't pain. It was clarity. A strange, sobering clarity. This wasn't just about money. This was about what people do when no one tells them what they should do. When the mask is off. When the audience is gone. When they hold power without permission and act without scripts. He wasn't just testing them. They were showing him, in real time, the parts of themselves they normally kept hidden behind curated personas and polished smiles. Grace, it seemed, had no persona. She was simply who she was all the time. That evening, Oliver sat alone in the living room, whiskey glass untouched in his hand. The lights of the city sparkled beyond the glass, like diamonds too far away to hold. He stared at his phone. He could call Grace. He could ask her what she was planning, what she needed, if she needed help. But he didn't, because for the first time in a long time, he didn't want to interrupt something that might be pure. Instead, he whispered into the quiet, "Who are you, really, Grace Williams?" And somewhere, beyond the noise of luxury and ego, a woman in an apron with flour in her hair was blowing up balloons with a smile on her face, entirely unaware that she was slowly, irreversibly, changing the way a billionaire saw the world. Oliver slipped out of the penthouse, heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and something he couldn't name. He wasn't sure what he'd find at the end of the block, on the street lined with modest homes, in a neighborhood he rarely visited. Yet, every instinct pulled him forward. He followed the rented van Grace had commissioned, driven by something he could barely allow himself to feel: hope. The address led him to St. Francis Home, shelter, and support its simple sign painted in faded pastels, echoing warmth rather than luxury. The courtyard beyond the front door buzzed with vibrant chaos. Children darted between tables, laughter ricocheted off walls, and strings of balloons hung from branches like low whispers of joy. There, in the middle of it all, was Grace. She stood in a bright striped clown jumpsuit, oversized red shoes that seemed too heavy for her, and a chubby red nose that turned her expression into something magical. Grace knelt with children like they were her family. Her laughter was soft but genuine. She twisted balloons into animals that often popped with a tiny, dramatic noise, but the children roared in delight. She sang off-key songs as she swept minor disasters off tables, all the while comforting a boy whose scraped knee made him cry. Oliver watched from behind a tree, careful not to break the spell. He saw Grace's eyes soften when the child wailed. She pulled him close, gently patting his shoulder, whispering words he couldn't hear until he cracked a smile through tears. A little girl, clutching a half-inflated balloon, toppled into Grace's arms, sobbing. Grace wrapped her arms around the girl with naming warmth, letting the tears slide away. She didn't try to be perfect or do it right. She simply held space for sorrow to lift. Then she laughed when a balloon popped in her hand and the kids fell over themselves in giggles. She laughed too, bringing tears of joy to her own eyes. And in that chaotic, messy courtyard, balloons swaying, children racing, colored sugar crunching underfoot, Oliver realized, more clearly than ever, the kind of person she was. She wasn't performing. She wasn't preparing. She was wholly, unashamedly herself. He approached cautiously, the rhythmic thumps of his heart louder than any traffic. A caretaker at the nursery desk, a gentlewoman named Margaret, greeted him with curiosity. "Oliver Grant? We've heard such wonderful things about your generosity today." He managed a tentative smile. "I heard about the party. I wanted to see, to help." Margaret nodded and guided him past the clattering trays, the art supplies, the burst balloons, and sticky sugar paper. There Grace was holding the ketchup-laden spatula as she handed out hot dogs to rowdy kids. Mustard smudged across her sleeve. Flour dust clung to her hair. And for a moment, her eyes caught his, and something like recognition passed between them. He watched her kneel beside a teary child, gently examining a scraped knee. Grace pulled out a small, colorful Band-Aid. "Here," she said, voice kind but bright. "This gives you magical healing powers." The child grinned, jumped 3 times, and proclaimed, "It works!" Oliver felt tears swell in his chest, tears not of pity, but of awe. Grace was weaving magic out of ordinary moments. Flour, balloons, hot dogs, bits of whispered kindness. He stepped in when Grace needed help flipping sausages on the grill. Her hands were steady. The scent of grilled meat wove into the air. Oliver handed out plates, and children bounded forward like balloons themselves, chatter spilling everywhere. "Are you really rich?" a little boy asked, looking at Oliver wide-eyed. "A little," Oliver replied with a flush. "But right now, I'm just here to help." Another chimed in, "Do you think you could buy a dragon?" Grace whispered to the child, "Maybe in your imagination, yes." At that, Oliver glimpsed something rare, pure, unguarded joy. It wasn't closeness through wealth or power. It was heart meeting heart. As the afternoon faded to soft twilight, Oliver found a quiet corner among the colorful chaos. He didn't say anything at first. He just watched Grace walking between tables, gathering trash and stories, gentle with the crying, silly with the laughing. Then he finally spoke, voice low and reverent. "Grace?" She turned, drying her hands on her apron, her face streaked with splashes of ketchup and flour. She looked surprised to see him standing there, but the surprise didn't break her calm. "I want to thank you," Oliver said, "for today. For giving everything, the energy, the care. I've never seen someone do this with so little attention to attention." Grace paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "I just do what I can." "No, you do more than that. You make children feel alive." She smiled softly. "They deserve that." In that moment, something shifted in Oliver's soul. The experiment, he realized, had revealed more than their characters. It had revealed his. This quiet moment with Grace, no cameras, no applause, was the moment he understood what real generosity looked like. Grace folded down the sleeves of her jumpsuit and offered him a plate of plain hot dogs. He accepted. And together, amid the sticky fingers and runaway balloons, they sat on tiny chairs, eating simple food, feeling inexplicably human. The penthouse living room felt like a stage lights dimmed, silence heavy, emotions crackling in the air. Oliver stood in the center, hands trembling just slightly, the envelope of Grace's card long since tucked away. Around him, Daisy, Susanna, and Valeria gathered like actors waiting for their cue. Their expressions cool, practiced eyes flashing with anticipation. Or was it apprehension? "Thank you all for showing up," Oliver began, voice steady but low. 3 days ago, I gave each of you an unlimited credit card. I said it was a gift. Today, I'm honest. It wasn't. It was a test. Daisy's eyebrow calibrated itself in shock, her designer heel tapping. Susanna straightened her spine, fingers tightening around the edge of her tablet, as though it were armor. Valeria's lip curled into a half-knowing smile. Calm, poised, as if she'd already written the script. Grace folded her hands in her lap, nervous, quiet, unaware she was at the center of truth. Oliver lifted his gaze to Daisy. "Would you like to start?" Daisy inhaled, voice polished. "It made me reflect on my potential. Influence, personal branding, a chance to show strength and style. Isn't ambition something to be proud of?" Her words were rehearsed, shaped to charm. But Oliver saw through it. He heard a note of performance where authenticity should have been. Next was Susanna. She opened with grace, though her eyes were alert. "I used it to invest in myself. My wardrobe, images, future meetings. I saw possibility." long-term return. She leaned forward slightly, as if delivering a slide in a boardroom presentation. Her logic was crisp, admirable on one level, but thin. There was no warmth there, no spark of connection except the one she hoped to sell. Valeria followed, voice smooth as silk. I planned a gala, a beautiful event that would align cause with presentation, a platform to elevate visibility, leverage influence. She tilted her head, elegant, but her words hit like calculations. Then Oliver turned to Grace. All eyes shifted. Grace's palms sweated against her skirt. She bit her lip for a moment, took a breath. I bought things for the children at the orphanage, she began softly. Food, toys, supplies for art and play. Nothing flashy, just what they needed to smile for a moment. Food for today, fun for today. Nothing more. Her honesty fell into the room like a soft confession, and it echoed. Daisy sniffed. That's sweet, Grace. But this was unlimited money, a chance to elevate your brand, build a platform. Why choose food over fame? Susanna nodded. Grace, I respect charity, but was it a strategic choice? With media, you could do bigger things, scale up, inspire thousands. Grace's brow furrowed, confusion folding into something firm. So it's better to buy clothes for likes, instead of buying meals for kids who are hungry now? Her voice was steady now, stronger. I don't need followers to know I care. The children at St. Francis don't ask for fancy words. They ask for simple help. Valeria clasped her hands. We're not dismissing that. You're noble. But you could have done both. Influencers amplify good. Visibility powers horizons. Grace looked around the room, eyes sharpened at the edges. She finally stood. Let's be clear. I've been helping those kids for 2 years. Every week, quietly. Without asking for anything in return. She paused, voice trembling. All of you acted fast. Posts, likes, parties, wardrobes. I didn't ask. I feed them. I paint with them. I let them be children, not content, not spectacles. Silence followed. Oliver's heart pounded as Grace's words leveled the room. Oliver cleared his throat, stepping forward. You all assumed what Grace did was inferior, because it wasn't glamorous. But real generosity doesn't announce itself with a camera flash or public approval. It just is. Daisy's face shifted shock, then anger. How dare you? He cut her off softly. Stop. What Grace did tonight, quietly, with no audience, is more powerful than all your strategies combined. Seeing need, meeting it without pretense. Susanna stood, lips tight. So philanthropy is meaningless unless it's personal sacrifice? No, Oliver said. It's the opposite. True philanthropy is unseen until it matters most. It's not about the return you can credit later. It's about the relief in real time. Grace's shoulders shook slightly, tears unspooling in her eyes. Daisy looked torn. Susanna turned away. Valeria studied her nails. Oliver swallowed. Grace, will you tell them one more time? From your heart, he turned to the others. Grace inhaled deeply. I didn't do this to impress you. I did it because they needed it. I spent what I could because I didn't know when I could help again tomorrow. Will I be doing more? Yes. Without posting it. Because kindness shouldn't need proof. Her voice cracked, but held. In the hush, Oliver realized the confrontation had torn away layers, not just from Grace, but from all of them. The experiment had uncovered not only what people do with power, but who they are without an audience. Grace stood a beacon in plain clothes, stained with ketchup and hope. Oliver felt tears prick his vision equal parts, pride and regret. He turned to the others, voice calm but firm. "I think it's clear who held up the highest standard of humanity in this room tonight." Daisy's shoulders slumped. Susanna's jaw clenched. Valeria's elegance didn't hide her discomfort. Oliver stepped forward, took Grace's hand. She looked at him, stunned. Everything in the penthouse seemed to shift in that moment. The truth was out. The mask had fallen. And for the first time, Oliver saw not only Grace's generosity, but her courage. The morning sun felt cold and distant when Oliver awoke. His phone buzzed incessantly, notifications, alerts, messages. He rarely ignored his phone, but this morning he hesitated. Something in the chill of the newsfeed had his stomach twisting in dread. He snatched the tablet that's always on his nightstand, fingers trembling. The headline blazed, "Scandal. Housekeeper accused of embezzling charity funds." His breath hitched. He clicked in despair. The article painted a horrifying picture: allegations that Grace had redirected donations from the orphanage, that she had inflated supply costs and pocketed the difference. Sources claim, it said, that discrepancies in budget reports raised suspicions. Oliver's eyes snapped wide. Discrepancies, suspicions, pocketed the difference. He shared a bedrock of real truth with the headline, "Nothing she spent went to herself. Every cent went to painting faces, feeding kids, building balloon animals." He threw the tablet across the bed. It landed with a hollow thud. Grace was gone. Gone from memory. Gone from his heart. If he let the headline define her. He could feel the acid of injustice roiling in his chest. He needed answers, but more than that, he needed truth. Downstairs, James stood in the doorway of the kitchen. Oliver was pacing. "Sir, the media is calling. Channel 7 wants a statement on the accusations." Oliver scowled. "A statement? Or a setup?" James flushed. "We're still investigating." "But, sir, I need to know who did this to her." Now Grace was in the kitchen, eyes red, hands still trembling from the shock. Oliver watched from the doorway, torn. "It's all lies," he said, voice taut. "Totally fabricated." Grace's shoulders shook. "Why didn't you just say that?" "Right away?" He swallowed. "Because I didn't want to make a fool of myself in front of the press. I needed facts. And while you hesitated," she said bitterly, "I became public enemy #1. Oliver winced. She was right. The next hours passed in blur. They put out an official response. Strong, clear, but careful. They had to be airtight. But Oliver knew the heart of the battle wasn't in press releases. It was in healing Grace's broken trust. Then, he started digging. The moment the accusations appeared, he had snatched the security footage from the orphanage. He had copies of invoices, delivery receipts, van rental contracts, all meticulously organized. He hired a private investigator. He coordinated with Margaret, the orphanage director, to verify every scrap of documentation. And as he did, the outlines of betrayal emerged. Late afternoon, Oliver impersonated someone not quite spy, but not himself either. He watched Daisy from a cafe across the street. He saw her talking on the phone, voice low but urgent. James monitored Susanna at her office, disguised, record button. Pressed. One by one, every whisper, every message, every back-channel connection fell into place. It wasn't Grace who betrayed trust. It was Daisy and Susanna, orchestrating a shadow campaign to discredit her when she began overshadowing them, not in money, but in heart. Oliver's chest seized with hurt and rage. These two women had sowed scandal with cunning fingers. They had watched Grace rise on kindness, and out of jealousy or greed, decided to pull her down. That evening, Oliver had a recording of Susanna admitting her part in planting the story. Daisy's conversation had been recorded too, her confession dripping with contempt. He replayed the recordings in his office alone, each word echoing like thunder. They had forged evidence, pushed narrative, viral narrative. Behind each constructed article was a calculated choice: discredit Grace for daring to show how charity truly looks. He closed his eyes, feeling the betrayal twist around his heart like barbed wire. When he finally confronted Grace, they were back in the penthouse kitchen. She was wiping a dish towel, silent, lost in her own stomach-churning thoughts. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. The porcelain clinked quietly. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I realize now I failed you when you needed me most." Grace looked at him, hurt raw and naked in her eyes. "But," he continued, "I won't fail again. I've got proof recordings, documents, everything. We will clear your name." She nodded slowly, tears gathering. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me," he said softly. "Let me stand by you. Because you deserve to have your truth seen and your heart honored." That night, the chaos of betrayal raged in headlines. But Oliver already had a plan. A press conference at St. Francis, evidence laid bare, truth illuminated. It wasn't just about proving Grace innocent. It was about exposing how far people would fall when confronted by someone else's genuine goodness. He went to bed later that night, the weight on his chest lighter, because he had chosen to fight. And the betrayal? It didn't break him. It made him realize that love, not ego, not ambition, not strategy, is the single most dangerous power, and Grace had been wielding it all along. The courtyard at St. Francis' home glowed under soft afternoon light, a peaceful contrast to the storm of headlines that had swept through Oliver's world days earlier. Journalists, supporters, and local officials gathered around the small stage Margaret had arranged. Yet, amid the crowd, Oliver looked only for one person: Grace. He held a folder heavy with proof: recordings, invoices, van contracts, and testimonies, all showing the truth. His heart beat steadily. This was more than a press conference. It was a chance to right a cruel wrong, to return dignity and faith to someone who deserved nothing less. When Grace stepped forward, dressed simply in a light blouse and jeans, Oliver felt a jolt. No gala gown, no jumbotron lights, just her. Her eyes reflected confusion, pain, and a flicker of hope. She hadn't prepared a speech. She didn't know what to expect. But she stood. Margaret stepped to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for supporting the work of St. Francis. And thank you, Mr. Grant, for coming forward with truth and courage." Oliver cleared his throat as murmurs hushed. He looked at Grace, fragile and brave, and began. "Good afternoon, everyone. I need to apologize. Not just to you here, but to someone very dear to me, Grace Williams. Grace was accused publicly of betraying the children she loves. That accusation was false. It was fabricated." He lifted the folder. "I have evidence. They were carefully planned lies, created by people who let envy and ambition outrun their integrity." He walked a few steps toward Grace. "I stood silent when I should have defended her. For that, I am deeply sorry. I doubted not the theft, but her intentions, and that doubt hurt her and all of you." His voice faltered, emotion catching him mid-sentence. He steadied himself. Grace did not betray anyone. She spent the money not on herself, but on children, on love, on laughter. At that, Grace's breathing caught. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Oliver continued, voice strong. I'm here to clear her name, but more than that, to honor her. Because Grace embodies what real generosity is. She doesn't post it, she lives it. He looked at her, always have. Reporters scribbled. The crowd watched her, moved, their expressions shifting from curiosity to compassion. Margaret came back to the microphone. Grace, would you like to say a few words? Grace swallowed, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Her eyes glistened. I've been helping here for 2 years, not because I wanted credit, but because these children needed someone. So many had no one, and so I stayed. She turned to Oliver. Thank you for believing in me again. Oliver stepped forward, brushed her hand gently. I never stopped believing. I was just scared to stand up, but I won't be silent again. They stood together, hand in hand, framed by children who looked up at them with trust. The next days softened into something other quiet moments in the kitchen, laughter in empty rooms, shared breakfasts. The penthouse felt different, stranger still, without scandal, without tests, a home again. Grace humming off-key as she cooked. Oliver lingering in the kitchen doorway to watch. No pretenses, just presence. They rebuilt together, not on luxury, but on authenticity. One Saturday morning, as the children helped Grace knead dough in the living room, Oliver leaned down. Can I ask you something? She looked up, flower on her cheeks, warm and real. Always. Will you marry me? There was no dramatic ring, no orchestral swell, just Oliver on one knee, nervous, hopeful. Grace blinked. The children gasped. She laughed through tears. Yes, she finally said, yes, I will. They celebrated with the children, who lifted Grace on their shoulders, calling her Mama Grace. A few months later, the wedding took place in the garden of St. Francis. The sun filtered through leaves, casting dappled patterns on friends and kids. There were flowers, yes, but not extravagant. Simple bouquets, laughter, barefoot dancing, sticky cupcakes. Margaret officiated. Tommy, Sarah, Michael. 3 children who held the rings stood giggling. Sarah squealed when Oliver and Grace kissed. Do it again, she shouted. The children danced in cardboard crowns, makeshift instruments, crowned bridesmaids and groomsmen from the orphanage. When the officiant declared, "You may kiss," Oliver and Grace embraced. In that moment, the world seemed to hush. A man who once distrusted everyone except money had found his home in the woman who gave from the heart. They settled into life together. The penthouse no longer gleamed like a museum. It echoed with children's footsteps. Weekly community lunches became tradition. Grace's off-key songs became family karaoke nights. One morning, Grace stirred oatmeal in pajamas, the air thick with cinnamon. Oliver slipped in and whispered, "You're home." She smiled sleepily, leaning against him. "We are." The final lesson, perhaps, was the simplest. Wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in trust. Love isn't earned by curated moments, but by showing up imperfect, vulnerable, generous. And some truths like Grace's don't need to be proved by influencers or headlines. They live in hot dogs served, scraped knees bandaged, laughter shared. As the camera of this story fades, the final shot is of Grace and Oliver, surrounded by children, messy aprons and all, laughing in the kitchen. It's messy, it's real, and it's what home looks like when redemption and love converge. You've just witnessed a story where money tested hearts, greed exposed masks, and love showed up quietly, in an apron and red clown nose. Maybe you're angry at how easily kindness was betrayed. Maybe you're smiling, knowing that true goodness can't be faked, and it never needs a spotlight. Or maybe, just maybe, you're asking yourself, if I were given that black card, what would I have done? Remember this: power doesn't corrupt people. It reveals them. And sometimes, the ones we overlook, the maids, the quiet ones, the invisible souls, are the ones with the most powerful hearts of all. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, share. Because the world needs more reminders that real love is quiet, real loyalty is unseen, and real heroes don't wear suits, they wear aprons.